My name is Harold Mitchell. I'm 75 years old, a retired high school math teacher from Denver, a man who spent a lifetime teaching kids how to solve problems only to learn that the hardest problems come from inside your own family. And the day I discovered that my daughter-in-law had secretly put my house up for sale without my knowledge was the day I realized age doesn't make you weak, trust does. Because for years I believed my son and his wife cared for me, respected me, and valued the home I built with my late wife, Eleanor, the house where we raised our son Jacob, celebrated birthdays, survived winters, and made memories that built the foundation of our family. But apparently to my daughter-in-law, Melissa, my home was nothing more than wasted property waiting to be cashed in, as she once told a friend over the phone. Not knowing I was standing in the hallway hearing every word. My son, unfortunately, had fallen under her influence like a leaf caught in the wind. Melissa was the kind of woman who saw life as a series of opportunities to grab, twist, and profit from, and she believed that anyone over the age of 60 was financially inefficient. Her words, not mine. The first signs of trouble came when she started suggesting that I downsize, that my home was too big for an old man, that assisted living was normal nowadays, and that selling my property would relieve everyone of the burden. Burden. That word again. Funny how the younger generation throws it around without realizing how heavy it feels to the person on the receiving end. I told her politely that the house wasn't going anywhere, and neither was. She smiled, one of those tight smiles that doesn't reach the eyes, and said, "We'll see." And we did. Over the next few months, little things started happening around the house. Important mail disappeared. Property tax papers were moved from my desk. My homeowner's insurance notifications stopped arriving. I began getting calls from real estate agents asking if I needed help selling. When I confronted Melissa, she played innocent, acting shocked, even offended. Jacob seemed confused too, so I let it go. For the moment. But I wasn't born yesterday. Years of teaching teenagers taught me how to spot lies long before they reach the surface. So I started being careful. I hid my documents. I checked my online accounts daily. I contacted my attorney just as a precaution and updated my estate plan, placing the house into a trust under my name only, untouchable unless I personally signed off. The lawyer told me the move was wise. I had no idea how wise until months later. One evening, while Melissa and Jacob were visiting, my Wi-Fi printer, yes, I can use technology, accidentally printed a page that wasn't mine. At least that's what Melissa thought. In reality, I had intercepted a document from her email account that she had connected to my printer months earlier and forgotten about. It was a real estate listing agreement. My house listed for sale. Without my signature. Without my knowledge. Without Jacob's either, based on his shocked reaction when I later confronted him. But I didn't show them the document immediately. No, I needed to see how far she would go. So I played dumb. I acted like the same gentle old man she thought she could manipulate. And sure enough, the plan became clearer. I overheard her on the phone one morning saying, "Once the papers are signed, we can finally renovate our dream home. He won't put up a fight, he won't even know until it's done." My blood ran cold. They wanted to force me out. They wanted to uproot the last piece of my life with Eleanor. And they thought I was too old to stop them. 2 weeks later, I got the confirmation. A letter arrived, addressed to Harold Mitchell Seller. The appointment for the final signing was scheduled. The house would be sold to a buyer, a couple from Texas who believed the owner was fully aware and approving the sale. Panic hit me at first, then anger, then clarity. They believed I wouldn't show up. They believed I wouldn't understand. They believed wrong. Before doing anything else, I called Jacob and asked him if he knew about the sale. He was shocked, not faking, truly shocked. "Dad, Melissa told me you already agreed. She said you signed the preliminary documents months ago." I laughed, not because it was funny, but because of how boldly she lied to her own husband. Jacob looked embarrassed, conflicted, confused. But confusion wasn't enough anymore. I needed action. So I told him the truth. Your wife attempted to commit real estate fraud. My signature was forged. His face drained of color. He didn't speak for several seconds. Finally, he whispered, "Dad, I didn't know." And for the first time in a long time, I believed him. But belief didn't mean forgiveness, not yet. I told him to stay out of it until the signing. I needed to handle this myself. And I did. The day of the signing arrived. Melissa left the house early, confident, wearing her favorite blazer, her deal-closing outfit, she called it. Jacob looked small, guilty, standing near the door as she kissed him goodbye and said, "By tonight, everything changes." She didn't know how right she was. She drove off, humming, ready to sell a house that wasn't hers. I waited 10 minutes, then grabbed my cane knot because I needed it, but because it made me look fragile, and fragility is a wonderful disguise when you want people to underestimate you. I put on my old brown coat, the same one Eleanor bought for me on our 25th anniversary, and called a cab. When I walked into the real estate office, the receptionist looked surprised. "Are you here for the closing?" "Yes," I said. "The seller has arrived." When they heard that, the conference room erupted into chaos. Melissa jumped out of her chair so fast she nearly dropped her purse. Her face went white as paper. "What are you doing here?" "Selling my house," I said with a smile, "since apparently I'm the seller." The real estate agent looked confused. The buyers looked angry. The lawyer overseeing the signing immediately sensed something was wrong. "Mr. Mitchell," he said, "we were told you had already approved the sale." "Oh, really?" I said, "Show me the documents." He passed them over, and there it was. My signature, except it wasn't mine. The loops were too wide, the slant too sharp, the spacing too perfect. I held it up calmly. "This," I said, "is a forgery." Gasps around the room. Melissa stuttered. No, you must have forgotten." "I forget nothing," I said. "Especially not signing away my home." Then I pulled out my real document, the trust file proving the house legally couldn't be sold without my personal approval. The lawyer on the other side examined it. "This overrides the sale," he said. "The house legally cannot be transferred." Melissa collapsed into her chair. The buyers stood, furious at being tricked. The agent apologized repeatedly, and I simply sat down, folded my hands, and looked at her the way a teacher looks at a student who just failed spectacularly. That's when Jacob arrived. He had followed me, unable to sit at home wondering what was happening. When he saw the forged papers, he looked at Melissa with eyes full of betrayal. "You lied to me," he said, voice trembling. "You tried to steal from my father." Melissa tried to argue, blaming stress, confusion, miscommunication, but no one believed her anymore. Especially not Jacob. The signing was canceled. The buyers left. The agent threatened to report Melissa for fraud. And Jacob told her to pack her things and leave his house until they figured out what their marriage even was anymore. I didn't celebrate. I didn't gloat. I simply stood, straightened my coat, and said quietly, "You tried to erase me from my own life. But I'm still here." Then I walked out, leaving the room silent behind me. A week later, Jacob visited me, crying, apologizing, ashamed. I forgave him not because he deserved it, but because I needed peace. Melissa never apologized. She moved out eventually, filing for divorce months later. Jacob said he finally saw who she was. And as for me, I stayed in my home. The home Eleanor and I built. The home no one will ever take from me again. Because they thought I was too old to fight back? They forgot I'm old enough to know how.